What happens when a music legend sits down for what should be a simple morning interview, only to have the host question everything from her career choices to her personal life? It only took one dismissive comment about her legacy for Chaka Khan to remind everyone exactly who they were dealing with, and what followed was a television moment that left the entire Good Morning America panel speechless. The studio lights were bright that morning, brighter than usual it seemed. Chaka Khan walked onto the set with that signature confidence, the kind that comes from decades of owning stages around the world. She wore a flowing outfit that caught the light perfectly, her hair styled in those iconic curls that fans had loved for years. The audience clapped as she made her way to the couch, settling in next to Lara Spencer, who sat there with that practiced television smile. "Well, welcome, welcome," Lara said, her voice carrying that overly cheerful tone that morning show hosts always seem to have. "We are so thrilled to have you here today." Chaka smiled politely, nodding her thanks to the audience as they continued their applause. George Stephanopoulos sat on the other side of the desk, shuffling his papers. Robin Roberts was positioned at the end of the couch, and Michael Strawn stood off to the side, ready to jump in when needed. The whole setup looked normal, comfortable even, like any other morning interview segment. "So Chaka," Lara began, leaning in a little too close, "let's talk about your new project. I have to say, when I heard you were doing this, I thought, really? At this stage?" The smile on Chaka's face flickered for just a second. "At this stage," she repeated, her tone still friendly, but with an edge that anyone paying attention could have caught. "Well, you know," Lara continued, waving her hand dismissively, "you've already had such a long career. Some people might wonder why you're still pushing so hard. Isn't it time to, I don't know, slow down a bit? Enjoy retirement?" Robin Roberts shifted uncomfortably in her seat. You could see it in her eyes, that look that said she knew this was going in the wrong direction. Chaka sat up a little straighter. "Retirement? Honey, I'm not even close to done. Music is what I do. It's who I am." Right, Lara said, but her tone suggested she didn't really get it. "But you have to admit, the music industry has changed so much. The young artists today, they're doing something completely different. Do you ever feel like maybe your sound is a bit, how do I put this, dated?" The word hung in the air like a slap. George looked down at his notes, clearly trying to stay out of it. Michael's eyebrows went up. Robin actually opened her mouth like she was about to say something, but Chaka was already responding. "Dated?" Chaka's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "Let me tell you something about my sound. My sound created the foundation that half these young artists are building on right now. They sample my work. They study my runs. They try to capture what I did naturally." "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," Lara said, but her expression said otherwise. "I just meant that maybe it's hard to stay relevant when when you've been around as long as you have." "Stay relevant?" Chaka repeated, and now there was no hiding the irritation in her voice. "Sweetheart, I am relevance. I don't chase trends. I set them." Lara laughed, one of those dismissive little laughs that people do when they think someone is being overly sensitive. "Well, that's certainly confident. But let's be honest, when was the last time you had a real hit? I mean, a song that people actually knew?" Robin cut in quickly. "Lara, I think what Chaka is saying is that her influence goes beyond just chart positions." "Thank you, Robin," Chaka said, her eyes still locked on Lara. "Because if we're measuring success by chart positions alone, then we're missing the entire point of artistry." Lara wasn't backing down, though. "Sure, artistry, that's great. But this is a business too, right? And in business, numbers matter. Ratings matter. Sales matter. And I'm just saying, objectively speaking, those numbers aren't what they used to be for you." Michael Strawn finally spoke up, his voice diplomatic. "I think every artist goes through different phases in their career. Chaka's legacy is undeniable. Legacy, exactly. Lara jumped on the word. That's what I'm talking about. You have this wonderful legacy. Maybe it's time to protect it instead of risking it with new material that might not live up to what you've already done. Chaka leaned forward, her hands clasped together. Let me make something very clear to you. I'm not here to protect anything. I'm here to create. That's what artists do. We don't sit back and worry about what people like you think about our legacy. People like me? Lara's voice pitched higher. I'm just asking the questions that our viewers are thinking. Are they, though? Chaka shot back. Or are you projecting your own limited understanding of what it means to be a real artist? The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. George cleared his throat loudly. Maybe we should talk about the new album itself. What inspired the direction you took? But Lara wasn't done. Before we move on, I just want to clarify something. Chaka, you seem very defensive right now. I'm simply having a conversation. Defensive? Chaka's voice rose slightly. No, honey, I'm being protective. There's a difference. I'm protective of my craft, my art, and my right to continue creating without being questioned by someone who clearly doesn't understand the first thing about what I do. I understand plenty, Lara said, her smile now completely gone. I understand that this industry is tough, and that sometimes people don't know when it's time to step aside and let the new generation take over. Step aside? Chaka stood up abruptly. The microphone pack attached to her outfit pulled slightly, but she didn't care. Let me tell you something about stepping aside. I've opened doors for the new generation. I've paved roads they're still walking on. I don't need to step aside for anyone. Robin stood up too, trying to calm the situation. Chaka, please, let's just take a breath. No, Robin, I appreciate you, but I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected on national television by someone who thinks she can talk down to me. Lara stood as well, her face flushed. Disrespected? I have been nothing but professional. You're the one who came in here with an attitude? An attitude? Chaka laughed, but there was no humor in it. Baby, you haven't seen attitude. What you've seen is me responding to your condescending questions with more grace than they deserved. George stood up now too. Everyone was on their feet. Ladies, please, we're live. I know we're live, Chaka said, looking directly at the camera. And I want everyone watching to understand something. I came here in good faith. I came here to talk about my music, my passion, my new work. What I got instead was a host who thinks she can diminish decades of groundbreaking artistry with smug comments and backhanded compliments. That is not what I was doing, Lara protested, but her voice lacked conviction. That's exactly what you were doing, Chaka countered. From the moment I sat down, you've been trying to put me in a box labeled past tense. Well, I don't fit in boxes, and I certainly don't fit in yours. Michael stepped closer. Chaka, we all respect you immensely. Do you, Michael? Because your co-host here just spent the last several minutes suggesting I should retire and stop making music. Lara threw her hands up. I never said stop making music. I said maybe it's time to consider your legacy. My legacy doesn't need your consideration, Chaka said firmly. My legacy is being written every single day I wake up and choose to create. Every time I step into a studio. Every time I perform. That's my legacy, and it doesn't require your approval or your permission. You know what? Lara said, her voice getting sharp. Maybe if you weren't so sensitive about your age and your place in the current music scene, you wouldn't take everything as an attack. The words landed like a bomb. Robin gasped audibly. George put his hand over his face. Michael looked at Lara like she had lost her mind. Chaka went very still. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but powerful. My age? My place in the current music scene? Let me educate you on something. I have forgotten more about music than you will ever know about anything. My age represents wisdom, experience, and a body of work that has touched millions of people across generations. My place in the current music scene is wherever I decide it is, because I earned that right through talent, hard work, and perseverance. I think we need to go to commercial, George said desperately. No, Chaka said, holding up her hand. I'm going to finish. Lara, you sit in this chair every morning and you interview people. But interviewing someone doesn't make you an expert on their field. It doesn't give you the right to belittle their accomplishments or question their choices. What it does do is give you a platform, and you've chosen to use that platform today to be dismissive, condescending, and frankly, disrespectful. Lara's face was bright red now. I have every right to ask tough questions. That's my job. Tough questions are fine, Chaka replied. But there's a difference between tough questions and thinly veiled insults. You've crossed that line repeatedly this morning. If you can't handle a real interview, maybe you shouldn't be doing press, Lara snapped. That was it. That was the final straw. Chaka reached down and unclipped her microphone pack. The sound technician started to move forward, but stopped when he saw her expression. Handle a real interview? Chaka repeated softly. I've done thousands of interviews with journalists who knew how to do their job with respect and integrity. What I won't handle is sitting here while you try to make yourself feel important by tearing me down. She placed the microphone on the couch carefully, deliberately. Chaka, wait, Robin said, reaching out. Robin, you're a class act, Chaka said warmly. George, Michael, you too. You all know how to treat people with dignity. She turned back to Lara. Maybe you should take some notes from your colleagues. Are you seriously walking out? Lara asked, her voice incredulous. I'm not walking out, Chaka corrected. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There's a difference. I walked in here as a guest, an invited guest, and I'm leaving because I respect myself too much to stay. This is incredibly unprofessional, Lara said. Chaka smiled, a real smile this time. Unprofessional would be staying here and saying what I really think about your interview skills. I'm actually being very professional by removing myself from this situation before it gets worse. She turned to the audience, many of whom were watching with their mouths open. Thank you all for your support over the years. Keep listening to real music. Music made by people who do it for the love of the art, not for the approval of morning show hosts. The audience started clapping, softly at first, then louder. Some people stood up. Lara looked furious. You can't just leave in the middle of a segment. Watch me, Chaka said simply. George was trying to signal to the control room. Michael looked torn between stopping Chaka and letting her go. Robin just shook her head slowly. This is going to reflect very poorly on you, Lara called out as Chaka started walking toward the exit. Chaka stopped and turned around one last time. You know what reflects poorly. Thinking you can treat a legend with such casual disrespect and expecting them to just smile and take it. I've spent my entire career standing up for myself, for my music, and for what's right. I'm not going to stop now just because we're on live television. You're making a huge mistake, Lara said. The only mistake I made, Chaka responded, was thinking this would be a respectful conversation, but I'm correcting that mistake right now. She looked at the camera one more time. To everyone watching, remember this. Know your worth. Don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, make you feel like you have to shrink yourself to fit their limited vision of who you should be. I'm Chaka Khan, and I've earned every bit of respect I command. If someone can't give me that, I don't need to be in their space. With that, she turned and walked off the set. Her heels clicked on the studio floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. The camera operators didn't know where to point their cameras. The audience was still clapping, some of them cheering now. Lara stood there, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Robin finally spoke into the awkward silence. Well, that was unexpected. George shuffled his papers frantically. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have, we'll have our cooking segment. But nobody was really listening to George. Everyone was still processing what had just happened. How an interview that should have been a simple promotional appearance had turned into a masterclass in standing up for yourself. How a host had pushed too far and learned the hard way that some people won't tolerate disrespect, no matter how big the platform. Lara sat down heavily on the couch, her professional mask finally cracking. Michael sat down next to her, but didn't say anything. What was there to say? Robin looked toward the direction Chaka had gone, a small smile on her face. She'd been in this business long enough to know that sometimes the best response to disrespect was exactly what Chaka had just done. Walk away with your head held high. As the show cut to commercial, the production assistants backstage were scrambling. Some were trying to figure out what to do about the rest of the show. Others were already on their phones, knowing this moment was going to be everywhere within minutes. In the hallway outside the studio, Chaka Khan walked with her head high, her team quickly gathering around her. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had said everything that needed to be said. Someone from the production team caught up to her. "Miss Khan, is there anything we can do? Can we reschedule? Maybe do another segment?" Chaka stopped and looked at the young woman kindly. "Sweetheart, I appreciate the offer, but no. What happened in there needed to happen. Sometimes you have to draw a line and show people where it is." "But the interview," the woman started. "The interview was over the moment your host decided to be disrespectful," Chaka said, gently but firmly. "I didn't end it." "She did. I just had the dignity to recognize it and remove myself from the situation." The production assistant nodded, understanding even if she didn't fully agree. Chaka's manager appeared at her elbow. "The car is ready." "Good," Chaka said. "Let's go. I have actual work to do. Real music to make." As she walked toward the exit, past the photos of previous guests and hosts that lined the walls, past the monitors showing the commercial break, past all the trappings of morning television, Chaka Khan remained exactly who she had always been. Unapologetic, powerful, legendary. Back in the studio, as the commercial break continued, Lara sat quietly. The reality of what had just happened was starting to sink in. She had pushed a music icon too far, questioned her relevance, dismissed her achievements, and then acted surprised when that icon refused to tolerate it. George leaned over. That got out of hand. She was being oversensitive, Lara muttered, but even she didn't sound convinced. Was she, though? Robin asked quietly. Or were your questions a bit harsh? Lara didn't answer. She couldn't, because deep down, she knew Robin was right. She had gone into that interview with preconceived notions about age and relevance, and she had let those notions color every question, every comment, every interaction. Michael cleared his throat. "We've got 30 seconds until we're back." The makeup artist rushed over to touch up Lara's face, but no amount of powder could cover the flush of embarrassment that still colored her cheeks. 10 seconds, the floor director called out. The hosts arranged themselves, trying to look professional, trying to look like they hadn't just witnessed a legendary artist walk out on them during a live broadcast. 5, 4, 3, the floor director counted down, then pointed. "Welcome back," George said with forced cheerfulness. "Well, that was certainly an interesting segment. Now, let's move on to something a bit lighter. We have an amazing recipe for you today." But even as they tried to move forward, everyone knew this moment would define the show for a long time. You couldn't just move on from something like that. You couldn't pretend it didn't happen. In living rooms across the country, people were talking about it. On social media, clips were already being shared, dissected, analyzed. People were taking sides, though the vast majority seemed to be on Chaka's side. "Did you see how she just put her down?" one viewer texted another. "That host was so disrespectful," another posted online. "Chaka Khan is a queen for walking out," someone else tweeted. Back at the studio, the cooking segment continued, but the energy was all wrong. The chef demonstrating the recipe could feel it. The audience could feel it. Everyone could feel it. In her dressing room, which she had briefly returned to before leaving the building entirely, Chaka sat with her team. "That was intense," her publicist said. "That was necessary," Chaka corrected. "I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself. Not now. Not ever." "The clips are already going viral," her social media manager said, looking at her phone. "Let them," Chaka said calmly. "People need to see that it's okay to walk away from disrespect. It's okay to value yourself enough to leave situations that don't serve you." Her manager nodded. "You're right. And honestly, this is probably going to be better publicity than a normal interview would have been." Chaka laughed. "I didn't do it for publicity. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But if it helps people understand that legends deserve respect, then I'm glad it's getting attention." She stood up, gathering her things. "Come on, let's go. I have a studio session this afternoon, and I need to channel all this energy into something productive." As her team filed out, Chaka took one last look at herself in the mirror. Same woman who had walked in. Same confidence. Same power. But maybe with one more story to tell about the importance of self-respect. Outside the building, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread fast. When Chaka emerged, they cheered. "We love you, Chaka," someone shouted. "You did the right thing," another voice called out. Chaka smiled and waved, touched by the support. She signed a few autographs, took a few photos, and then climbed into her car. As the car pulled away from the curb, she looked back at the building one time. Good Morning America would go on without her. The show would continue. But something had shifted. A line had been drawn. A statement had been made. You can't treat legends like they're past their prime. You can't dismiss decades of achievement with smug questions and expect no consequences. You can't confuse a platform with power over the people you interview. Chaka Khan had reminded everyone of those truths in the most direct way possible, by simply refusing to play along, by valuing herself enough to walk away. By showing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation that doesn't honor who you are. The car merged into traffic, carrying her away from the studio, away from the drama, away from the disrespect. But it was also carrying her toward her next session, her next song, her next creation. Because that's what real artists do. They don't stop creating just because someone questions their relevance. They don't stop pushing forward just because someone suggests they should slow down. They keep going. They keep making art. They keep proving, over and over again, why they became legends in the first place. And if anyone doubted that Chaka Khan still had fire, still had passion, still had the power to command attention and respect, well, they had just witnessed proof. Live on television. Unfiltered. Unapologetic. Unforgettable. The interview that was supposed to promote her new project had become something else entirely. A moment of truth. A lesson in self-respect. A reminder that some people will always be royalty in their field, and royalty doesn't bow to anyone.